attending. And so this is a nonpartisan event. All candidates were invited. And as we ask the question, candidates will actually be rotated in the position that they will get their question. We have our federal candidates, we have our state candidates, and we also have our local candidates. We have a lot of candidates with a lot of information. So they will be able to answer the questions that we ask when we're giving them 1 minute. We actually send them the questions ahead of time so they can have time to prepare. So since we have so many candidates and so much information, we encourage after the candidate forum to speak to your candidates at the meet and greet. We had a great meet and greet party too, to give individuals the opportunity to meet with their candidates and have more conversation. The audience will also be able to have input. We have some index cards in the back. So if you have a question that you would like to submit to one of the candidates, please get an index card and give it to one of the ushers, and they'll make sure that it will be read in the time for the candidates' questions. And now I would like to introduce our moderators for tonight. We have Bobby Robinson that will help moderate, and we also have Dr. Yvonne Lee. So let's give them a hand for it. And we're going to open up with the federal candidate, so I'm going to pass it on.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith, I'm Bobby Robinson, and our first candidate tonight is Lacey Watts, running for the House of Delegates. One of Lacey, in District 1. Mic check. There we go. All right. Your first question, Lacey, you get 2 minutes for your first question, Lacey. Your first question is, or would you like to briefly introduce yourself first? Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to come and speak with you guys. I see a lot of new faces out in the audience, so I'm going to give a brief introduction, tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running. First and foremost, my name is Lacey Watson. I'm running for Congress to defeat Carol Miller this coming November 8th. I was born and raised in Bluefield, West Virginia. I am completing my PhD in Planning, Governance, and Globalization at Virginia Tech. I have my master's in psychology from Nova Southeastern, and I have my bachelor's in biology from Concord College in Athens, West Virginia. And with that being said, I want you guys to know that I use my education for one thing, and that's to represent the working families and the working individuals in West Virginia. I do this because you deserve the leadership, you deserve the resources, you deserve the support from your federal representative. We are not getting that, and I need to step into the role with your help and your support to make change for West Virginia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Your first question. Racism is the driving force of the social determinants of health. The CDC has declared racism a serious public health threat. How are you prepared to address it?
Well, that's a big question, and that's a multi-tiered question with multiple different answers lying at different levels within our organization as a civilization, as a government, as a community. But to answer your question succinctly and precisely, I would say 3 areas need to be addressed to tackle discrimination and move this discussion forward, because this will not be a discussion that will be had with one particular generation of people. But those 3 areas, number 1, legislation, number 2, education, and number 3, action. Legislation. We have seen historically legislation that has granted historically disadvantaged individuals within our nation the opportunity to rise above and to make better lives. We can do that simply by electing individuals that want to make that their life objective as far as completing goals for our Congress is concerned. Number 2, education. We have to allow our teachers to do what they do best. They're professional educators, and they know how to educate our children as far as digital literacy, as far as understanding misinformation, we as individuals in our own right, in our own profession, need to get out of the way and let teachers do what teachers do best. And that's teach our kids to be productive citizens so that they can take on the meaningful job that we'll have in this 21st century. And finally, activation. Activation came about from a conversation that I had in West Virginia with a group of individuals. And they said, Lacey, one thing that we need to do is reintroduce the draft. And that caught me off guard at first. But as I thought about it, the implications of having a draft not for war, but for children to get the opportunity to move out of their current circumstances and environments to see another part of the nation, of the state, so that they can see different people and learn that racism is only taught in your home. It does not exist out in the real world. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Watson. Question number 2. What legislation would you support for job retain for West Virginia for the 21st century and economic development to rebuild our economy from extractive fuel to more sustainable industries with well-paying jobs?
Thank you so much for that question. And the first thing that I would do would be support the initiatives that are already in place with the Inflation Reduction Act that this administration put into place. There are some meaningful ways that we are combating climate change. There are some meaningful ways that we are combating inequality. And those ways need to not just be brought about right now, but continue into the future. And those continuing processes could be lowering the cost of childcare, a major issue that a lot of parents come up to me and talk about in West Virginia. All right. We can also, do more things as far as making sure that the resources for our foster parents are adequate to the needs of their individual children. All right, that's something that we can do as well. So there are a host of legislative policies that are in the Inflation Reduction Act right now that we can use to bring about more equalization. It's just up to us as a community, as Democratic and Republican and independent minds come together and put leadership in office that can work towards those goals. But that's what I would do first and foremost, capitalize on what we already have in play and make sure that it's successful.
Right. Well, Lacey, we want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was easy. Thank you so much.
And next up, we have our state candidates. As I call them to the podium, let's take a seat. We have Senator Richard Lindsay here, Delegate Kayla Young, Delegate Mike Pushkin, and candidate Rusty Williams. Do I have any more in the building that have shown up? You come on, come on, come on, come on. Before I ask the question, I would like to give you guys a few minutes to briefly introduce yourself. And we'll start with my question.
Thank you.
Test. This is why my test.
Thank you. My name is Mike Pushkin. I'm running for re-election to the House of Delegates. You want me to do this one?
That's right.
The new 54th district, which is slightly different from the 37th district. I live here on the west side, just like a block and a half away here from this church. I just really want to thank Pastor Watts, the congregation, Grace Bible Church, all the organizations that put this together. We've not had a whole lot of opportunities to really talk about our agenda and what we're trying to do at the legislature. The constituents. More importantly, we haven't had nearly as many opportunities to listen to our constituents, especially over the past couple of years with COVID. So really blessed to be here. Thank you so much for hosting us. I look forward to hearing from you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Delegate Danielle Walker, also the Vice Chair of the West Virginia Democratic Party. I was here for support of my candidates that are here on the stage tonight. I represent District 51 and I am running in District 81 in Montague County. So you asked, why did I travel from Morgantown to Charleston? Because Charleston is also my home. See, right up the road in that Golden Dome, we have the People's House. And you're looking at the only African-American woman that serves both in the House and the Senate. And I serve each and every one of you, whether you live in Montague County or not, because if you call me, I'm coming. I am so grateful that you are hosting this about health. We see what COVID did to us. And with that fight with Romelia Hodges with Fairmont, and also Tiffany Walker Samuel, we now have the African-American COVID-19 task force. And because of that, we now have more African-Americans that are with us, but it's ravaged through Marion and Mon County. And I understand that hurt in that pain. So I thank you for even welcoming me up to the stage when this is not even my wish.
My name is Rusty Williams, and I'm running to represent the 59th district here in Kanawha County. It's Nitro and Cross Lanes. And this is all very personal to me. I never thought that I would ever be involved in politics. I followed this since I was a little kid. I always knew who my representatives were, and I was up to speed on what they were doing. But getting involved in the political process was not anything I ever thought I would do. And then in 2012, I was diagnosed with late stage cancer, and my life completely shifted. I made the decision to illegally use medical cannabis to get through aggressive chemotherapy treatments, and that decision has put me on the trajectory that was laying here to run for office. I've dedicated my entire life to working for and advocating for West Virginia patients, and that's what I plan to continue to do if I'm fortunate enough to win this election. So I thank you all for inviting me to participate in this discussion. I mean, healthcare is one of the most important discussions that we should be having right now, especially coming out of the global pandemic. And I'm just grateful to be here and happy to answer any questions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Young. I currently represent the 35th district in Kanawha County, which is most of everything on that side of the river. But I am running for House District 56, which is just between Bridge Road and Quarter G, all the way out to Southbridge, and then it goes to Tornado, and it shouldn't take me this long to explain, but here we are. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you to all the organizers that put this on, and I'm really grateful with the team that I'm happy to be sitting with right now, because it's a really great group. We talk about healthcare a lot, but we don't really talk about the social determinants of health. So I'm really excited to be getting to the root issues. I got involved in politics when my son was 3 days old and the water crisis happened here in Charleston, and our life dramatically shifted. I just had a major surgery. I had a new baby to take care of. We didn't have fresh water like most of you didn't at the time for almost a month. And after that, I got involved in environmental activism and became a lobbyist at the Capitol, and wasn't happy with how things were going. And so I ran for office, and I'm just fortunate to be here and excited to talk to all of you.
My name is Richard Lindsay. I'm the current state senator from the 8th district. That district has changed somewhat. This is still part of the 8th district, but it's now includes part of Southern Jackson, Olive Road, and Olive Clay. So it's a very big district that I'm running for re-election for. I was first elected in 2018. And I think we've been able to accomplish some things. We'll talk about some of those things, I'm sure, when we answer some of these questions. But I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Healthcare, I was sitting here thinking, no surprise to anyone, you can't learn if you're sick. You can't work if you're sick. You can't take care of others if you're sick. So whether we're talking about healthcare in general or the social determinants that make out healthcare or result in outcomes, this is a very serious topic. I enjoy the opportunity to talk about and focus on healthcare because there are so few opportunities to do so. So thank you for having us here this evening.
Can we thank all of you guys? Microphone check.
Yes, well, we thank you guys all for showing up and coming, and answering our invitation. So the first question, you guys will all have a minute to answer the question, and here's the first question. Health equity means closing the gap between privileged populations and marginalized or vulnerable groups of people. What do you think West Virginia can do to advance health equity and reduce health disparities? We'll start with you, Michael, work our way.
Thank you. This is an issue that we don't talk about nearly enough. And I'm so glad that when I saw the questions and what this forum was about, I was happy to be here, honored to be here because it's something we don't talk enough about. There was a report that came out almost, I was talking to Pastor Watts about this before we started, almost 20 years ago. You had the report of the report on minority affairs that came out. It was about health, it was about education, it was about criminal justice reform, it was about economic development. And it is large for the most part, gone ignored for the best part of 20 years. Now, I think it's 8 years after that, they created the Herbert Henderson Office. Now, there have been bills that have been passed over the years to address equity. I'm not sure if the legislature has gotten used to calling it that, but that's what we're trying to do. But the main problem is just enacting the laws that have already passed. We can start with that. There have been laws passed first to create the Herbert Henderson Office. It's not funded nearly enough. There's been a bill that has passed to create a pilot program here on the west side. It was never enacted. I'll say it real quickly. Don't tell me your priorities, show me your budget. That's what I say to the legislature. The laws are on the books. They need to fund them.
Healthcare equity and healthcare disparities. We need to start by going into those communities and funding those communities. We can do studies all we want, but it's time to put the money where it needs to be, and that's in the Office of Minority Health, because we have one. That needs to make sure that we have accountability in the Herbert Henderson Office of Minority Affairs and keep that name just as it is, and not remove the name of Herbert Henderson off of that office, because that's exactly what was attempted. What we also need to do is make sure that we are giving initiative the physicians and nurses who are people of color. And that will bring, and that will make equity, and that will decrease the disparities. And we need to go door knocking. When you see a specialist, then you should make sure that that patient also has a primary care physician. And we don't.
I think the first thing that needs to happen, we need to elect folks into office who are willing to address these problems for what they really are. Whether we're talking about healthcare or we're talking about the criminal justice system, we are operating under a great big umbrella of white supremacy, and most of our lawmakers use and bring that up with cringe in the word. And I put cannabis policy reform for the better part of a decade. To me, it's always been a civil rights issue. And when I start talking about those topic issues or what it truly is with our lawmakers, you wouldn't believe
to engage and provide care. And also, anything we can do to help and assist and leverage folks like Reverend Patterson and Pat, and what they do in the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, outstanding. Next question. What initiatives will you support or propose to address systemic disparate treatment and impact on Black people in the criminal justice system? We'll start with you this time, Rick.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, let you go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that we should probably do is just make sure folks who find themselves in that position have as much assistance and education as possible as far as how the process works. I mean, you know, most folks get appointed counsel, or they can't pay for counsel, appointed counsel, but there needs to be some system in place so that that individual can navigate the system in addition to having counsel there as well. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing I think we need to do, and this is kind of broadens it out a little bit more, is we need to put more of our resources in family treatment courts, which are set up, not in every circuit, but a few circuits have them, that then spend time in abuse and neglect proceedings and drug proceedings and try to provide assistance, try to provide care to families who find themselves in that situation. So that's what I would try to do, or I would start with. Thank you.
I like that idea for the social workers. Help, that's a great one. There's so many things we need to do in the criminal justice system. The numbers show us that Black and brown folks are incarcerated at significantly higher levels, and the state hasn't done anything to address that. I think we need incredible training for our law enforcement officers on implicit bias, because it's clear that their actions are racially motivated a lot of the time. I think we need to do a lot to get low-level offenders that have crimes as their victims out of incarceration, no matter what. And, you know, we can use a lot of that money that we save because the county jail bills are through the roof to get back to those communities. So I think that we have kind of been wasting our time and not doing a lot of the criminal justice things that we can be doing, working with our counties and our cities and everybody in the court system to make sure that everyone's treated equally, because right now they're not.
As far as pushing specific pieces of policy, I would do exactly what I've been doing the last 10 years. I think we need to end the prohibition of cannabis in West Virginia. We have a Black population in West Virginia that's a little lower than 4%, but yet 19% of everyone serving jail time right now for nonviolent participants are Black, and 11% of everyone arrested in West Virginia for nonviolent cannabis is Black. To me, it's absolutely disgusting. We are watching states all across the country decriminalize and legalize and expunge the records of folks who have been caught up in the system. We need to do the same thing here in West Virginia. From 2010 to 2018, there was a downward trend nationally as far as nonviolent cannabis offenses go. In that same time period in West Virginia, there was a 49.5% increase. Nationally, you're 4 times more likely to go to jail for a nonviolent cannabis charge with Black and brown. And in West Virginia, you're 7.6 times more likely to go to jail. So to me, this is something that I'm very passionate about, and if I win this election, I am I'll be pushing these policies from day one.
One, we need to decriminalize poverty. 2, we need to make sure we have crime limits. 3, we need to make sure that every law enforcement agency, magistrate and judge takes a strong diversity, equity, and inclusion course. We need to have a check and balance, especially for these judges. We need to make sure that people are just not sitting in jail because they cannot afford bail. And the laws that we passed in Charleston, underneath that golden dome, is to make sure that it's trickled down to that local government. And we need to educate. In high school, every student should take a know your rights course. We should have it in the community. We should have it in the churches. and it should be funded by the state, who is criminalizing at a higher rate of African Americans right here in West Virginia.
I did the same thing. When I first was elected back in 2014, I made criminal justice reform one of my top priorities. I first introduced the Second Chance for Employment Act in 2015, not long after I was sworn in. It took a while to get it passed. It didn't go nearly far enough. I was able to work with the Justice Administration to help create the jobs and hope program that gives full felony expungement for certain nonviolent offenders and job training. This past year, we were able to pass a bill that expands the offenses that qualify for work release, so we can get people out 6 months earlier, get them trained, so they're not being let out onto the street, like into a shelter. They actually have some sort of job training and home plan before they get out. That's all on the back end. We need to do more on the front end, and that's what has been harder to do at the legislature. I would personally like to end cash bail. People shouldn't be sitting in a regional jail before they're even tried, before they even see a judge, simply because they're poor. But that's what you have. More than half the people in our regional jails are in there. And what Danielle said about training, we need more of it. One thing I need to get out, if you go to a drug court, I'm a strong supporter of drug court, but everybody looks like me in drug court. Vast majority of people who go to drug court do. The problem might be with the prosecutors.
Thank you. Next question. There have been numerous studies showing that students of color, foster kids, and children with disabilities are failed and suspended at a much higher rate than their fellow students. How would you support innovative measures such as restorative justice to address school discipline issues for these students? And we'll start with you.
Thank you. I've always been a supporter of restorative justice. I was disappointed when we didn't get the senator we were supposed to get up on the West Side Hill, and they wound up tearing Robbins down. There was supposed to be a restorative justice center there. I was excited about it. Unfortunately, there wasn't community buy-in on it. We've introduced bills in the past to study the disproportionate suspension and expulsion rates with Black and brown students in West Virginia. It is way out of line with the rest of the country. We've known that. We've introduced laws to study it, but the studies have come back in without us passing a law to do that. And I was real happy to see that the state board has agreed to work with Pastor Watts on getting a pilot program here on the west side to actually address it. I don't see Pastor Watts back in the room. I want to thank him for his persistence and continuing to go up to the school board and speak to this. And it appears that they have finally listened. And that's what it's going to really take. Because I honestly don't think the legislature should have that much control over the school board. So I also don't support amendment number 4. But I'm happy to see the school board step up and hopefully they get it right.
This goes back to diversity, equity, inclusion, and some cultural awareness to our educators and personnel. Point blank period. You don't know how to speak to the students of color, so therefore you punish them. So what are we going to do as legislators? What policies are we going to introduce? Well, number one, we can still start with, and I'm going to always start with the Crown Act. Natural hair, understand that heritage. Number 2, can we get some real oral history? Can we look at the Golden Horseshoe test and see how many African Americans are actually on it? Can we stop using Katherine Johnson to uplift your figure white supremacy? Because that's exactly what it is. When you are expelling Black and brown students at a higher rate, it is racism, it is discrimination, and it is an embarrassment. In school suspension, we already have an issue with child care. Where in the world do you want these children to go? Are you going to pay the parents to stay at home with them? What is the next step? And we must have community support in this. When we introduce those bills in January, we need you to start contacting the Speaker of the House. I won the election on Tuesday. My son was expelled on Friday. He was homeschooled on Monday. Because I refuse. I work too damn hard. for him not to be part of the prison pipeline system. And no BOE and no public education and no administration is gonna take that away from this black mama. I kept him out of the street. He don't sell drugs. He don't pay drugs. But so what if he did? If that was the only way of survival for him? What else do we have for these children? And sometimes we got to be uncomfortable in that. And I'm gonna take my time with this one because we've lost too many. The crack epidemic ran through our community. And now we have the opioid epidemic and everyone can go to recovery. Children can be taken care of in the foster care system. But how many black and brown children do you steal from their parents and from their grandparents? We need to make sure that kinship is really kinship. And that the elders will not lose their Social Security benefits because they're taking care of not grandchildren, but great-grand and great-great-grand. We need to understand and look at it. Oh, I'm gonna take my time with this. Look at it. Kinship can also mean a teacher or educator. Are we talking about race? And we're gonna keep it real, and I always will. How many of those kinship educators are black and brown people? But even when you put yourself out there to be a foster parent, you can lose your own biological children because systems don't work. And it don't work because we never have enough people at the table. So you know what? I'm not just flipping the table, I'm tearing down the walls. We need an open space for all. For those who are standing in the back that's listening in, they shouldn't have to rattle a window because we're breaking down the walls. Enough is enough. And I'm tired of seeing these children suspended. And then they're cooped up in a number of, they must be the homeschool students because we don't see them doing anything productive. We'll keep them in school and give them a job. Take them out of class early and let them work with the janitor. Let them work with the cafeteria worker. Heck, let them answer the phone in the office. If gym is where they need to be, let them be an assistant to the coach. Let them go in the art room. But stop clipping our children because it's not happening on my watch.
Well, I agree with everything that Don is looking and enjoy the world. With the exception of one state. I think the system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. I think that we need people elected to office willing to challenge the system. When our lawmakers are hell-bent on making sure that we don't teach our kids the real history of this country, that is a problem. Not only do we need to be teaching our kids the history of this country, but I think we need to be teaching the educators and the lawmakers the real history of this country. We need to do everything we can to stop the school prison pipeline. I do not think having armed police officers in our school system, making any of our kids safer, especially when, we're talking about black and brown kids, kids with autism, kids with developmental disabilities. Not only is it not making them safer, it's traumatizing the lives of the kids, putting them in situations that they wouldn't be in if the people who are in charge of managing their day would properly educate them on the real situation in there. I think that, we need to, the key to solving all of these problems is education, and that's what we got to start to solve them.
I also agree with my friends up here. On day 57 of the APC in the legislature, this past session, I was incredibly proud to shut down the entire legislative process for a couple hours, which in turn killed the civil rights hearings over here. But it's gonna come back, so we have to be fighting and getting rid of it. Like Rusty said, I'm incredibly concerned about armed police officers in schools as police officers, because especially when they're undercover, because it doesn't really work. I don't know what the answer is, but that freaks me out, and a lot of surveillance is scary. I do think surveillance is necessary in some situations. You asked about, students with developmental disabilities. This year, we passed some bills to make sure we did have cameras in those classrooms, because we've had some really unfortunate events of teachers abusing students here in Kanawha County. So for those kids, I do think we need cameras in classrooms with as many eyes on them as possible, but for everybody else, it's also students need surveillance or deserve surveillance. I also think we need to make sure we're treating our Black and brown educators fairly. You know, there was a teacher, I think it was in Rowan County recently, it was a Black teacher who was let go of her job because she was explaining her hair to students. So, like Danielle said, we need to know that.
Might sound like a broken record, but I do agree with everything that's already been said. I think we all agree with a lot of the same mind on these issues. I think that's important to remember. You know, we all support restorative justice. But we also need to recognize too, that whatever approach we take to, you know, ending the suspension, the prison pipeline, or ending out of school suspensions altogether is a holistic approach. Everyone up here, again, Rusty, I'm sure he would support this platform. We had bills to add social workers to our schools because our teachers can't do it alone. And they only have that child for 68 hours a day, 6 hours. A lot of stuff happens at home, or nothing happens at home. The teacher has no control over it. So, you know, wraparound services, mandated no more than 15 students in each classroom, because a teacher cannot have a relationship with a child that's falling behind if she's got 35 kids in the classroom. That's not going to happen. So those are the things we need to do. And then also, we need to do this. We need to engage the community. They have to be part of the solution. That's not legislation. That's going out to the community and talking to parents, finding out what needs to happen at that school for their buy-in into the school. That's more of a community approach that has to happen. That has to be part of any solution when we're talking about this great of an issue.
Racism is a driving force in social determinants of health. The CDC has declared racism a serious public health threat. How are you prepared to address it? Richard, the last time was the first.
Well, here's a novel idea. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge its existence. Don't hide away or shy away. We can have good conversations and get a lot done if we just acknowledge it, that it exists, and that it's something that we must tackle as a community, as a society, that it hasn't evaporated over the last few years, that it's just that you can find it just about everywhere. I think that would go a long way, and unfortunately, there's a big part of our population that, I don't know, I would say good, a good amount of folks that wouldn't want to acknowledge. So that's the first thing. The other thing I would do, and I don't know if that would be legislation, but our healthcare workers need to be educated on how it affects healthcare to an individual, how it affects healthcare outcomes for individuals. They need to be trained, they need to be educated in that respect. But like I said, I think the first thing is just to acknowledge it and have a conversation about it, and then that's how you can find solutions to it.
That's a very good thing. We do need to acknowledge it. This is such a big question, and I'm very glad the CDC is taking steps to make it a public health crisis, because it is. There's so much we need to do. I introduced a bill 2 years ago and again last year to study reparations, because we know there's a giant wealth disparity between Black and brown people and everybody else in West Virginia and beyond. All of the healthcare things we talked about, the education things, it reaches into every single part of life. And there's just so much that we need to do. I know that I don't have all the answers. I know that everyone here has a lot of answers, and a lot of you are at the Capitol all the time. And I'm glad to see you all here. So I'm excited to keep working towards finding solutions. But I think, like the senator said, talking about it is the absolute very first step.
Here's another broken record. I completely agree with you. I'm a strong believer that education is the key to everything, and we have to tell the truth. Truth may not always be pleasant, it doesn't make it any less true, and we have to elect folks who are not afraid to stand up and call these issues out for what it is. Racism affects every single aspect of our society, whether Catherine in Charleston or Washington want to acknowledge it or not, this is true. I served on the board of directors at the Women's Health Center. We were the last remaining abortion provider in West Virginia, and I've seen the disparities with reproductive health in firsthand. And again, like Delegate Young said, I don't have all the answers, but I am willing to sit down with folks who are affected by these policies, and their conversations and their input would craft. So it would be a driving force behind every piece of legislation I have my hands in, either drafting or sponsoring or pushing. And you cannot have these discussions taking place about racism. It can't just be a group of old white men talking about these issues. You bring everybody to the table, and I think that's the only way that we're going to find a proper solution and find our way out of this mess.
Racism. February 1st, 2022. Your only Black female delegate received an email from the president of Berkeley, West Virginia's Berlin, with a KKK meeting saying that that was an ally of mine. You know how we get rid of racism? We denounce it. I sat on that for 6 days. We denounced it. You know, when we were redrawing district lines, we made sure that Delegate Hannah wasn't in the district of a white supremacist headquarters. You know what we do, West Virginians? We denounce it. We tell them that they don't have a right to be here in our hills and our houses. We denounce it. Now I believe sitting up here, I'm the only one that could say that racism exists from me. And it has touched me more by being your public servant than the whole time I've been in West Virginia. So don't say that it doesn't happen. Don't say that it doesn't exist. I need you to acknowledge it. I need you to be an accomplice. And I need you to educate your uncle that you tell the children to ignore for holiday dinners. This one is personal for me. Racism. I got a security guard everywhere I go. Racism. I have to carry everywhere I go. Racism. I wear a bulletproof vest everywhere I go. Racism. I have more alarms on my home than anything. Racism. I have 8 safe homes. Racism. Racism. You uncomfortable yet? You hot underneath the collar? You didn't turn red yet? Racism. Oh, I just heard about it. I'm sorry does not fix everything. But I can tell you with me, stand with me when I say Black Lives Matter. March with me when we need to change the name of a school because Black and brown children have to go in there. Write with me because I got to park right in front of Stonewall Jackson. And then when I walk down to my office that's in the basement that I share with Pushkin, I got to see Stonewall again. So just because you may not see a visible cross burning in my garden, it burns in my mind for whenever I go to the restroom. Whether I leave my home to go to the grocery store in my own time. Where I have to have mystery riders with me everywhere I go, one in front of me and one behind me. It's making sure that my son, even my late one, wore bulletproof vests and my mom. Racism is alive and well. CRT, racism. Prison system, racism. Jails, racism. Whether you like it or not, police were formed because we didn't want free slaves to be free. Racism. I'm gonna leave it like that.
Thank you. I truly appreciate being part of conversations like this. Like Danielle said, we don't need to be comfortable all the time. We need to be uncomfortable. We need to have uncomfortable conversations. And if the first step to any problem is an admission, it seems that this country's been hung up on the first step for far too long. There has to be an admission that there is a problem, an admission that we all suffer from implicit bias. And the problem is when we don't admit it, then that that bias influences our decision-making. And when people who make public policy, when their decision-making is influenced by it, we see the result of that in far too many states and in this state and all across the country. And that's where you see the social media, that's how it has an impact on poor public health outcomes. And that's how Danielle and I have been the ranking members of the health committee for a while. We have been to meeting after meeting about adverse childhood experiences. That is the leading determinant of poor public health outcomes. But all we do is hear about it. We never get to address it. Whether it means, and that basically means funding of after-school programs, funding of mentorship programs, having positive adults in the lives of children. Yeah, instead, the legislature wants to run bills like erasing or whitewashing history because they say they don't want their children to be uncomfortable. The reality is they don't want to be.
Thank you. They're not. Next question. We have spoken to many individuals across the state who feel they must turn down an opportunity for additional work or earn more money to not lose their vital Medicaid coverage. Other states are using federal dollars to address this Medicaid income cliff. Using federal funding flexibility, West Virginia can create a Medicaid buy-in for lower income people funded with federal dollars. Would you support a West Virginia workforce development program that would allow low income people to hit the Medicaid cliff to continue Medicaid coverage to a Medicaid buy-in program?
Thank you. I give you a very short answer on that. Yes, I've introduced that bill for the past several years. It's something that I've also heard from people is that people will turn down a job with a promotion. They will turn down better employment because they will lose their health care. And it shouldn't be contingent upon that in this country, but it is. So we've introduced a bill over and over again. I found a Republican lead sponsor of the bill. We've introduced that bill over and over again to allow people to buy into the program so they're able to keep the health care that they're used to with Medicaid while still being able to make more money. There shouldn't be this artificial drop off on if you make this amount of money, then you're off your health. And to me, it could be, we've sold it to the conservatives as well. It incentivizes work. We want people to work. So don't kick them off their health care when they get a better job or a promotion. So yeah, I'm all in. I've introduced the bill. We need that bill to pass. So we need to keep pressure on the legislature to run that bill and to pass that bill. It's good. It's good policy.
I'll be easy.
Absolutely, yes. This is when in my own remarks, I just saw personal to me. I've actually experienced this. I haven't been off the procurement that you're going to watch for the rest of my life. And when the stimulus checks came out, I was worried that just from having that money in the bank that I could lose my health care because when you're on the system, if you have $2,000 in your account, you're off, right? So I've experienced this firsthand. I know exactly what they put patients through. It's criminal what we do to patients in the richest country in the history of the world. And if I'm elected to represent the 59th district, I'll be more than happy to sign on to that bill as a sponsor and work every single day until it passes.
I agree. I've been a co-sponsor of that bill for the last few years for the Medicaid dying program. But I'll take it a step further if Liz is still here. I don't think this is something that state can fix, but I don't think healthcare should be tied to a job period ever. I think it should be a basic human right to have access to healthcare, and it shouldn't, if you try to your job, I think that's what makes sense to me. I think everyone should have access to healthcare, so I think the Medicaid buying is a really great step in the right direction, but it's the first step, not the last step, so.
The answer is yes for me as well. I just want to share a quick story. I was up in a new part of my district talking to an oil and gas producer. And he was going on about how we can't get enough work, doesn't have enough work, no one wants to work. He said, look at that guy going down the street, pushing a stroller. He's 25 years old. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's pushing a stroller. And I said, well, you offer healthcare? You offer those benefits with your jobs? No. I said, well, he's not going to work for you or anybody else because he has to take care of that little girl in the stroller. He got to take care of his family. And the look on this guy's face when I told him this, it's like a bolt of light. Like he never even thought about it. Right? So it is, what we talked about when we discussed, I agree with it, and we need to pursue that. I mean, it's kind of like, just to go off on a tangent here, just real quick, another quick story, just to show you how sometimes the system is built against you. We were having a discussion on unemployment benefits last session. The guy from workforce came up, I think his name is Atkins, Commissioner Atkins, and he gave this testimony about workforce. He talked about how 75% of people find jobs after 6 weeks, so they don't even get to their full 26, 28 weeks, however much it is. And I asked him, I said, well, why isn't it? He goes, well, we help them out for the first 6 weeks. We get them in touch with people who are looking to find employees. We try to give them a skill. We tell them where to go, but then we just don't do anything after 6 weeks. Now think about that. What if we put an emphasis, expanded that out to 6 to 12 weeks, for example, or 18 weeks? We would be able to get 100% employment. But those are the types of things like this Medicaid income cliff that we can do to increase workforce productivity and participation in the state that we all agree on and should be done. Thank you.
Can you just get 1 minute just for our closing remarks? Feel free to say, this is Douglas Walker. One.
Yes, just closing remarks. Really, just thank you for being here tonight. Really, this is a good turnout for an important issue. I'm honored to share the stage with these folks up here. They are courageous. They fight every day on their issues, on all hosts of issues. And I just hope that, I hope you all can recognize that and then tell as many folks that you know about their work and what we've done. Again, thank you for your time.
I'll be brief. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. I know we all appreciate it. But to me, we all feel the same way. I know you guys in your position probably feel the same way that we do. We can't do this work unless the numbers in the legislature change point blank period. And then right now in the House, going into this election, we have 100 members in the House. We have, 23, 22 in our caucus. They keep dropping like flies. We have 22 in our caucus, and that's the super minority. That means we can't even stop rules. That's it. The only thing we could do is stop the entire legislative process, and we can't do that very often. Nuclear option. So we need more people elected statewide, period. So thank you for being here, but unless the math changes, we can't make any of these policies reality. So I know you guys will help us because you wouldn't be here if you wouldn't, but it's vital and important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all again for allowing me the opportunity to share my thoughts on the issue. Thank you for hosting. I think that, again, this is one of the most important conversations that we really have at the time. West Virginia has, we've got a lot of problems that need to be fixed, and the political will, unfortunately, within the supermajority, it is just not there. And like Phil said, we want to see the West Virginia that we all know this place can be. If we want to see the West Virginia where all around here, those people, the way they love how they get their authentic self. We're gonna have to elect folks in there who are not afraid to speak truth to power. You know, and again, it's like I said earlier, the truth doesn't always, it's not always pleasant, it doesn't keep us true. And I hope that you got folks in Nitro and Crossland area, share my campaign information, tell them to get out to the polls on November 8th. And, yeah, just thank you for everything tonight, and I'm glad you did.
Strategize, organize, and mobilize to the polls. To see who are here tonight. Now, I'm not talking to you as a delegate, I'm talking to you as a true blue Democrat. Invest in blue is an investment in you. You've heard what each and every one of us has said. An early vote, stroll to the polls. Voting is your birthright, it is part of your democracy, it is your voice, it is your freedom. And we've had too many freedoms stripped away from us, especially when it comes to abortion. That's the first part. What's gonna be the next one? You see how they do us in Charleston with CRT. You see all these things against us. We play more defense than offense, and it is not fair to the people of West Virginia. And if you have anybody in Morgantown, you tell them to vote for Daniel Walker. Because guess what I can do? I am long-winded, and I promise you, I'll continue to talk, and I'll never vote on that.
Thank you. I want once again, thank Pastor Watts and Great Father for hosting this event. It's been incredibly informative for us as well, as informative for you too, because these are issues that unfortunately we don't get to talk about a whole lot at the Capitol. And I know that this is a nonpartisan event, but there's a reason why none of us here are running against each other, because we're all in the same party, because the other party didn't show up. That's a problem. That's why we can't have these conversations at the Capitol. The party that is in charge doesn't even bother to show up because it's not a priority for them. The priority for them is tax breaks for out-of-state corporations, things that don't benefit anybody. Priority for them is creating divisive issues that pit working people against each other to keep the wealthiest few in power. That's the problem. So I'm honored to be here with you. I'm honored to be here with my colleagues here in the Democratic Party. Yeah, I'm sorry that the other party didn't show up.
Let's give them one more hand.
Good question. Came up with questions.
Yeah.
Good question. Good question.
All the city candidates. All the city candidates.
We were at the thing.
Calling all city candidates.
All the city candidates.
Skill member, Ward 10.
Ward 8.
Well, we want to thank you all for answering our invitation. Okay, let's start. You guys will have 1 minute to answer this question. And the question is, what plan do you have to support our most depressed community by addressing the social detriments of health for citizens of Charleston? And what federal, local, and state financing and what organizations can you bring together to accomplish this goal? And we will start with you.
My ward is pretty much one of the hardest hit, this from systematic, the way the city has been over the years. So right now, like, we're in the food desert. And we were lucky enough to get a lot of ARPA funds for our community, for my ward. So right now, a group is in order to put in a grocery store. Patch recently got a ARPA money, they're gonna put a clinic over that way. So, and also other, like, money that we're going around, like, we're trying to figure out how to get like home ownership in my neighborhood. That's a major thing. What they did to us is that they built a bunch of apartments. There's nothing wrong with that, but they didn't foster home ownership. So what is it, a high turnover rate where I live at? And what they're doing is that, like, for example, like, man has been for this house for 50 years, owns this house. They just put up these apartments aside. And like, no, Mr. Taylor's doing stuff he's never had to do with. Instead of like, we were under the impression they were gonna put like townhouses, like RTO homes. But what they're doing is you the same type of turnover, but not great. So what's happening is that when you own your house, you take more pride in your community. I mean, this is a fact. You're gonna be more, you're more trying to see what's going on. You're more trying to call, you see things. If you're renting, you're gonna be here for a couple months, you don't be there. And like, you know, and it's hard to change the face of the neighborhood, because that exists though. Most people are not gonna wanna buy a house in that area because of the rampant, the stigma that we have. And we're just trying to get through that. Like I said, the food that we have right now, like I said, we have a grocery store that's coming over on Park Avenue. So that's gonna be a good thing. So they're gonna try to pull out fresh produce. And they will offer people jobs and whatnot with it. So that's coming along well. And I know it's a pack. I know Reverend Watts, they got some money too. They got some programs they're trying to do, workforce programs. So like the workforce programs are greatly needed. There'll be a lot of people that return from being incarcerated or whatnot, and they get trained. So what happens is a lot of times they come home and they say it's easy to get a job. And when you check that F on your box, it doesn't matter what you have, it's an F. People don't care what you did. So systematically, you get frustrated. You intend to end up going back to what you know, and then going back to what you've been going through. So trying to change that whole loophole, that whole circle. So that's I think that's going on. So I mean, just being in my ward alone, because it's crazy because you can go a block over from my ward and it's like night and day a little bit. And like, you know, even certain parts of the neighborhood named differently because, you know, they don't want to say, well, I'm from the west side. Oh, no, I take the west side. They use a different tag on this neighborhood to try to, you know, type people. I mean, like even where I live right now, they have like food park. Right. So like that little park was made, I know it's for a tax cut, but I was with a meeting. And like we were talking about like how West Side, Stonewall changed his name. And I was like, well, you know, Little Park was a segregated Little Park, right? And Lakeville, they were Little Park all over the state, all over the country. That doesn't make it right. So like, you know, so certain things we have to fight for and stand up and like, you know, enlighten and always try to enlighten and fight and keep behind us and keep things moving. So we don't get stuck in the same cycle. So like, you know, I was really, in my ward, I would like to see, like I said, home ownership programs and like a lot of drive trainings. Cause like a lot of the people, because they come to what we live at, it's cheap, it's affordable rent. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're not offering them more, like how can I help you become entrepreneur or if you want to get a training or whatnot. A lot of times when they get out of high school, kids do, they're forgotten.
So and that's the thing, so we gotta try to figure out, like, the kids who don't know what they're gonna do. Not everybody out of high school will go to college or go get a trade. Some people just gotta find their way in life. So a lot of them get left behind because they don't have anybody to come to them and be like, well, I know you're 21, 22 years old, 25, 30. It's never too late, you know what I mean? So I would like to see, like I said, more like I said, workforce, like I know President Watts talked about workforce vision. Like you said, more home ownership in my neighborhood, especially my ward, because you become a ward, like it's like the craziest thing, like the farther you get west, it turns into like a whole, because you get past West Side Middle School, you get into my ward, Washington Street, up in Washington Street, compared to the LC district, which I call West Side, it's a different world. And like we have some businesses that's on my neighborhood has been there for years, like Young's department store, Chocolate department store, the smokehouse restaurant, staples of the city, but you wouldn't know it because, you know, we don't really get that whole area of that Washington Street. I would like to see that area get redeveloped myself personally. Because I mean, that whole area, you have a lot of old storefronts and stuff there. A lot of things can be done in that area. I mean, recently we did put a new basketball court over there, which kind of made the area a little nicer. So we could also like to see that whole area get revitalized. Because they make a lot of good things over there. Because, you know, when you say the West Side, first thing people do is they drop, they like, no, I'm not going to the West Side, no, I'm going to the West Side. It's not that thing. But my bid might be up, so with that,
Well, I can tell you, I'm very close to the west side. But I know, because I work in the city courts, I've seen this. And like he says, we need more homes, we need more people in the homes. It's nothing like own your own home. It's a feeling you'll never forget, you know, if you have to make a family, get your own home. And we need to find out if we can find some money, we need money, maybe interest rates down. Get these people in these homes. I want to see more leadership, help people get in home. I always believe in, my wife always says, lift people up. Let's lift people up to a better world, to a better place. That we lift people up into homes, there's something to do. We lift people out of addiction and recovery. It can't be no different if you live with somebody from poverty to a home. It's the same. See the one. I'd like to thank you all for this.
One of the things that I've heard a lot is homes, and this is about healthcare, but homes are important because without a place to rest your head at night, without knowing where you're gonna sleep, it's really difficult to make that commitment to, yeah, I'm gonna go to that doctor in 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm gonna work on this therapy. I'm gonna attend all the meetings that I need to in order to keep my health. You need to have housing first. You need to have a place where you can live, where you can be safe, know that you're gonna be safe and not have to be on the street the next day. You need a housing first. Austin, Texas did away with all of their having every single organization to try to do everything. It wasn't working. It's like a lot of cities tried this and they really departmentalized or they said, all right, this group is going to do clothing, this group is going to do healthcare, this group is going to do mental health, this group is going to do housing, clothing, like all these they departmentalized, and it has the lowest rate of homeless population in the nation right now. Don't quote me out exactly on that, but it's like it went drastically, like crazy positive results. We need housing first so that we can get the underlying care. Maslow's hierarchy of need. I'm a teacher. We have to get those basic needs met first before we can teach them higher level thinking skills. And with that also comes the social and emotional skills that they need to function in today's society. So housing.
In my word, I don't think that there are definitely problems. We do have a lot of abandoned homes, abandoned properties that the city has to maintain. And so that's one thing I definitely want to work on. And Chelsea and I are kind of teaming up together because on the east end, there's a grocery store.
So that's one of the things that we are actually already starting to think about and work on to see what's available, what areas we can try to find some place to put one in to help those where the big desert as well.
Hi, my name is Ed Pepper. Apologize for being late. Jen and I were at different event talking to different constituents, so I appreciate you allowing us to meet you here late. Yeah, in terms of addressing health issues, I think we need to make the city a place that encourages health by making it more walkable, making it easier for people to get around. We have a sidewalk fund that we have really enacted a few months ago from the ARP funding. We need more parks to help people be outside. The land use agency that I sit on for the city has two purposes: to deal with properties that have been abandoned and not been used. One is to find redevelopment opportunities for them, and the other is to identify when it's proper for them to be parks, whether they're next to another park or could be their own park. And I think there's at least two locations on the west side here that would be, in my view, prime spots to add new parks for the west side. We need better buildings for people to live in. Through my day job work on energy efficiency, that has a public health component of itself, because we have more healthier buildings. People breathe easier, there's not as much mold, et cetera. And one of the things I would fight for at the Public Service Commission is to make sure that, because this is a little wonky, but when people weatherize their efforts to existing state programs, then one of the reasons that they can't get them weatherized is because there are health and safety issues too unsafe for the workers to be. And these are people's homes where they live all day. And so I've successfully fought for some funding for that at the Public Service Commission to get health and safety improvements so people can get their homes also more efficient. Anyway, I think I'm aware of myself. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. And again, Emmett and I were at a different event, so I do apologize for being a little bit late. I am Jennifer Carr. I'm running for Charleston City Council at large for re-election as one of the 6 candidates that you can vote for. In my day job, I am the development director at the YWCA. And actually, we are working on an initiative to focus on helping with social determinants of health and combating that. And we are collaborating with some other organizations within the community because we know that we can't do this by ourselves. We have to be able to collaborate with others, be able to have open conversation and dialogue in order for us to combat the issues that we have. None of us have all of the answers. And one of the things that the most important thing that we can do is listen to the constituents, listen to people that are within our community so that we can understand what is really bothersome and an obstacle that needs to be overcome. So we're just in the beginning stages of this where we want to have more community events. We want to be able to get out into the public to find out what are the challenges within our community and how we can overcome those challenges. So you'll probably see some things coming out on social media, asking for input, asking for folks to come to different fairs and events. And we just hope that you come out because again, without having the input from the community, we can throw things that, the old adage of throwing spaghetti on the wall until it sticks. But we need to know what's really going to stick and what's really going to make a difference. So it's going to be up to you all to help to give us that information and for us to implement what we know that we need to do in order to overcome those obstacles. I mean, I'm so very thankful to be sitting here in front of you all. This is what I've missed during COVID, and to have the input from you is the most valuable asset that we can have. So I thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Come on. And first I want to apologize because we're running out of time, but I do want to give the city council members the opportunity to address the questions if they. Here you go. You want to read the question?
So the question is. Need to read it to me?
What plan do you have to support our most depressed communities by addressing the social detriment of health of citizens of Charleston, and what federal, local, or state finances, or which organizations can you bring together to accomplish this goal?
Thank you. Overall, I'm Michael Farmer. I serve as the co-executive director of Step by Step West Virginia. We have 19 after-school programs in Lincoln, Logan, and Kanawha County. We really specialize over the last couple of years in providing AmeriCorps mentors that actually go into our local schools to provide in-school mentorship on top of the after-school programming. And just recently, we just wrote 3 DHR grants to provide more opportunity for our family support. We recognize that you have to have holistic care. We're really focused on ACEs, with adverse childhood experiences, and recognizing that our kids are going through trauma from the opioid crisis, from basic things, not having food in the household, and then you have to attack it from every single angle, but also recognizing that to build resiliency, you have to work with parents. So it's looking at not just saying, let's serve the kids and families, but how do we do it holistically? So when you look at the social determinants of health, you look at things that kids may go through as the trauma aspect. I really believe in doing evidence-based programming. I live and I try to die by Dr. Christoph out here. He's done a beautiful model with the Icelandic model, and recognizing that when you actually start to change the environments that people are living in, people are more apt to do the positive activities as opposed to doing what's the negative. So that means that you actually have to start looking at, from the state, the federal, and local level, investing back into the community, providing safe spaces and opportunities for kids, but making the long-term investment in change, not just a temporary thing that's a photo op. To be honest for a minute, it's going to take more than a year, 2, 5, it's going to take 10 years, because we recognize that our communities have been neglected for 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years. But I wholly believe it's going to be us getting together, recognizing that it cannot be parties that are leading the charge, but individual people who are coming together collectively and saying, what are you bringing to the table? How can I maybe step away from this because you're doing it better, and using the opportunities to apply funding to whoever can do it best all across the board. So for us, we do after school programming. We just put a letter of support today for Keep Your Faith, saying, hey, you guys are doing counseling and doing this work better than us. What can we do to support your efforts, and how can we even bring somebody to the table? Because it can't be about the individual organizations, it has to be about the people themselves. One thing that we have when we look at bringing these individuals together is looking at the individual sectors within our communities that are social determinants. So one thing that we've done from an education aspect is we actually started a couple of months ago, or about a couple of years ago during the pandemic, something called the Charleston After School Coalition. We got every after-school program and provider in the area, Parks and Rec, and we said, what are we all doing? How can we do it better, and how can we support each other? So it helps to know that if you're having an activity, you need funding, you need this and that, as opposed to fighting each other and trying to reinvent the wheel, we all get together and we collectively go after these funding. And we use our resources together. So I think we still need to do the same thing with around health. What do we do with getting all of our providers together? We recognize that there's so many more people that have a need, and I think having a neutral party can actually provide those opportunities. That's my answer.
Well, that was a Thank you, thank you. Basically, what you're saying is we got to get back and take the village. It takes the village. That's what it does. It really takes the village. And as I see all these faces out here in the audience today, we want to thank you for coming out today. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Smith. And just remember, as we leave here, it's going to take a village. And it didn't take us a year to get here, so it's not going to take us a year to get out of here. But as long as we work together, and this whole thing was about, my favorite scene is know before you go to the polls. Know before you go. Know who you vote for. And also, I just want to tell you this one thing before I turn over to Dr. Smith. Because see, I was one of those voters that went out there. Know who you're voting for, and don't leave no blank marks on your ballot. Because when you leave a blank mark on the ballot, the voter will have to be with you. So know before you go. So don't leave nothing blank. Be informed. Dr. Smith.
Let's give all the moderators a hand for it. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank all our candidates on the federal, the state, and most importantly, also our local candidates. And we also want to thank our audience. We want to thank our audience that's present. We also want to thank our online audience. And before we end tonight, I just want to thank a couple of hands who be here for this time, but it was a lot of people that pulled this together. And so I just hold your applause. I'd like to first thank Grace Bible Church for creating this space for us all to gather. Reverend Watson, his congregation. I'd like to thank the sound system that's back there, and keeping us all on sound, and our technical people. I'd like to thank Alpha Iota Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Alpha Omega Omega Omicron Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Black by God, Black Girls Impact Initiative. Beta Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Charleston Alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Charleston Institute Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. Charleston Institute West Virginia chapter of the Links Incorporated. Charleston branch of the NAACP. Healthcare for All West Virginia. Hope Community Development, Our Future West Virginia. Partners of African American Churches. Rise Up West Virginia, Tuesday Morning Group, West Virginia for Affordable Healthcare, West Virginia Center of Budget and Policy, West Virginia Center Action of Education Fund, Phi Alpha Chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority of State of West Virginia, and most importantly, our community members. It really takes a village for us all to do this together. May we continue to do so. And before we leave, we do have a meet and greet with our candidates from 7:30 to 8 and also some snacks. And I would also like to leave you with a couple important dates. We know early election is out, so we encourage everybody for early election, October 26th and November 5th. And this year, don't just go to the polls by yourself. Take someone with you. Encourage someone to also go. We have Stroll to the Polls, that's this Saturday, October 29th. And for next Saturday, October 29th and November 5th at 12 p.m. So if you want to come together and celebrate, meet us for Stroll for the Polls. Election day is when? November 8th. All right, let's make sure if you don't get an early election that you get people there. And Our Future of West Virginia is having an environmental series on their films. So look up on their website and check them out to support them. Step by Step is hosting their annual Halloween party this Thursday from 5 to 7. Their resource, so please come out to support. And lastly, Capitol High School is looking for community support. And so our high school wants the community support so we can support our children. So feel free. I know some people said that they have reached out to Capitol High School in the past and have not been successful, but things can change. And so now they're in a space to know that we need our community together to support our kids. So we have a table out there for Capitol High School. If you're interested in supporting the school and supporting our students, please sign up and we'll contact you. Once again, we thank everybody. We're going to fellowship in the hall for our online community. Good night. And once again, thank everyone.